Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here at the Cannes Film Festival. It's time to review Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch, probably the most anticipated, widely known movie premiering at the Cannes Film Festival this year. The film is divided into 3 different stories, all of which follow journalists investigating some wild and wacky happenings. The way the movie's structured is there's some intro stuff about the newspaper. Then there's story 1 with Benicio del Toro, Léa Seydoux, Adrien Brody, and Tilda Swinton. Story 2 with Timothée Chalamet and Frances McDormand. Story 3 with Jeffrey Wright. And Bill Murray is the most prominent figure in the non-story scenes back at the newspaper, and there's a decent amount of him. Now, the amount of all-stars in the cast is larger than this, but if I didn't mention their name, it's because they were more of a cameo. I apologize, Saoirse Ronan fans. She's barely in the movie. I apologize, Elizabeth Moss stans. She is barely in the movie. But out of the cast that I did mention, each one of these players does have a fun character and moments to shine. And what we got with this movie actually might be Wes Anderson's most visually stunning and eye-popping film yet. And that says a lot considering that Grand Budapest Hotel was a thing. The production design in particular is off the fucking charts in this movie. The amount of effort and detail they put in to get just one shot that lasts for maybe 3 or 4 seconds. It is difficult to fathom. And along with that, the costumes are really good and the cinematography is quite gorgeous. It's sort of told half in color, half in black and white. Both looks are really excellent. The sheer aesthetics. I mean, this movie is an absolute candy box. And it's not just the production design and the costumes, it's the blocking and the movement and the positioning of the actors within the frame. It's extremely meticulous. Every inch of every shot is just satisfying to look at. Your endorphins will be popping throughout this movie. The movie sounds really good, and the score, once again by Alexander Desplat, is really good. All of his scores with Wes Anderson have been among his best work. And I don't know if this is like better for me than his score for Grand Budapest Hotel or Isle of Dogs, but you are absolutely getting that bouncy, playful goodness that you now expect with a Desplat score in a Wes Anderson film. Another strength of the movie is that it's really funny. It has that classic witty Wes Anderson dialogue. You can rely on it to give you some clever lines and visual gags. There's always some little detail in the frame that's like a little bit funny. I'd say nearly half the movie runs almost like a montage. And if you're Wes Anderson, having a montage is like the golden opportunity for you to go nuts with having like different sets and different camera push-ins and slides and different kind of movements. And sometimes I wonder, like, does this movie exist just so that Wes Anderson can go absolutely fucking ham? But sometimes the movie's a little overwhelming because just with so much going on visually, as well as the fast-paced dialogue and storylines that can be a little overcomplicated, this thing is going to overwhelm some people. I was okay with the visual overstimulation, maybe not so much the plot being like unnecessarily convoluted. I think the third story was the hardest to follow. The first story ended up being my favorite, and out of everybody I've talked to about it, they did agree. Maybe this is because Benicio del Toro's in it and he's a little bit of a standout throughout the whole cast. But I also really enjoyed Adrien Brody and Tilda Swinton in this part too. Frances McDormand and Timothée Chalamet made a really good duo in the second part, which was probably my second favorite. And that descending order of how much I liked each part is probably not the best order to present the movie in. However, the third story has a really fun 2D animated chase sequence, which acted as a really cool finale for the movie. The anthology structure of this story is probably my biggest issue with it, because if you have an anthology with 3 different stories, you're not getting like a central arc that goes through one character. It lacks those really strong climactic moments that other movies have. But generally, it's just tough to care about any of these characters. They're fun to watch while they're on screen, but I don't think anyone really makes a lasting impression. It's unfortunately kind of a long day away from the days of Rushmore or Royal Tenenbaums, where those movies really felt like they were about exploring the characters. I think I saw him straying away from this a little bit on Isle of Dogs, which really just did not give me anything to connect with in terms of that movie's characters at all. And I do like this movie better than that, but it does sort of share the issue of having like a really complicated plot and then not giving as much focus to the characters. But that being said, the movie is basically impossible to be bored by. There's just so much visual candy going on. It's difficult to be emotionally involved, but it's a giant lollipop, and I licked it up. So now that my thoughts are out of the way, let's get down to business here, folks. We know why you're here. You want to know if the movie's going to get nominated for Best Picture. Is Wes Anderson going to win his Oscar for this movie? That's what you want to know. Let's just start by breaking down the obvious. Production design, it's going to get nominated. Might fucking win. Honestly, some of the most impressive production design I've ever seen, maybe. So that's getting nominated. Costumes is probably going to go along with that for a nomination. I'm not sure I'd be convinced that it would go for a win. I mean, we already have Cruella in the competition. House of Gucci's coming out. And then the cinematography is just absolutely gorgeous. It should get nominated. The black and white, the color, both of them look amazing. So unless the movie gets tenanted, I think that it's going to get nominated for cinematography. And what I mean by getting tenanted is that if the movie's not so much a player in the above the line categories, it could be harder for it to nail all the technical categories that it might otherwise get. But I will definitely be betting on it getting cinematography, make no mistake. Score is also another category it's probably going to get. Desplat got nominated for Isle of Dogs and Budapest Hotel. He's probably going to get nominated for this one too. Budapest Hotel won makeup. This one does not have anybody who's just like absolutely caked in it, and so that just isn't probably going to get nominated. Will the movie get Best Picture? Well, the consensus here, I think, is that the movie is not Wes Anderson's very best. Budapest Hotel got nominated because it was considered Wes Anderson's best film. I mean, there are obviously going to be Wes Anderson diehards who just like eat it up no matter what. They're going to say it's like fucking amazing, sure. Many people seem to agree with me that the movie is more style over substance, and so that would kind of make it a below the line sort of player, and it wouldn't get director, which means it also wouldn't get editing. Could it muster a screenplay nomination? I mean, Wes Anderson's been nominated for screenplay without having his movie in Best Picture before. I just think with the type of issues that people are having with the movie, issues with character or convoluted plot, maybe that keeps it out of the screenplay conversation. It really just might be a below the line contender in those four main categories that I mentioned, maybe going for a win in production design. And overall, I just don't know if it's going for the same reputation as Grand Budapest Hotel as like one of the crowning achievements in Wes Anderson's career. But although I have some issues with this movie, I really did end up having a consistently good time with it. It's really fun, it's dessert, I give it a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. When will the French dispatch you?